Amaya Johnson had been at Ridgewood High for only 3 weeks, but it already felt like 3 long months. Every day she arrived early, walked straight to her classes, kept her eyes down, and tried her best to stay invisible. She was the kind of girl who never wanted trouble. She just wanted to study, make her mother proud, and get through each day without attracting unnecessary attention. But high school did not work like that, especially not when you were new. Quiet and looked different from most students around you. People noticed her silence. Some respected it. Others turned it into a target. That Friday morning, Amaya sat in the science lab, gently flipping the pages of her notebook. Her class had a group experiment to finish, but she ended up working alone. Not because she wanted to, but because no one felt comfortable pairing with the quiet new girl. And that was fine with her. Silence was easy. Silence was safe. The room buzzed with chatter as other students joked around and mixed colorful liquids for fun. Amaya stayed focused on her work, pretending not to hear the whispers from the boys at the back of the room, the popular group. The ones known for loud laughter, varsity jackets, and careless attitude. They were the kind of boys students avoided, not because they were dangerous, but because they enjoyed picking on anyone who looked vulnerable today. Unfortunately, Amaya was the closest vulnerable person available. "Hey, look at her," one boy said with a smirk, loud enough for his friends to hear. "Sitting all alone again." Another boy laughed. "Maybe she thinks she's too good for us." Maya heard them, of course. She always did. But she pretended not to. She kept her eyes on her notes and tried to ignore the knot forming in her stomach. "Just breathe," she told herself. "They go away if you don't respond." But they didn't go away. The 3 boys moved closer, their sneakers squeaking against the clean lab floor. They always walked like they owned the room. Everyone else stepped aside for them. Everyone except Amaya, who simply had no choice. She felt their presence before she saw them, shadows falling over her desk. The smell of their cologne, the sound of their muffled laughter. "Why are you always alone?" one asked, leaning close enough that she could hear the grin in his voice. "Too scared to talk to people?" Amaya forced a tiny smile that did not reach her eyes. "I'm just working." "Oh, she talks?" Another boy teased, as if this were some kind of discovery. She didn't respond. Her heart beat faster. Not from fear of them physically, but from the feeling of being trapped, being stared at, being pushed around by people who enjoyed making others uncomfortable. The boy in the center nudged her notebook. "Relax. We're just having fun." His version of fun was not fun for her, before she could pull the notebook back. The boy suddenly grabbed the corner of her jacket. It wasn't hard enough to hurt, but enough to make her freeze. Enough to make her breath catch in her throat. "Come on," he said lightly. "Why are you always acting scared?" "We're not doing anything." She tried to gently pull away. "Let go." Her voice was steady, but soft, almost swallowed by the noise of the room. But the boy held on a second longer. Wanting a reaction? When she didn't give one? He smirked and loosened his grip, only to grab again a moment later, this time pulling her slightly closer. Not choking her, not hurting her, but scaring her, making her uncomfortable. That was enough for him to feel entertained. His 2 friends laughed behind him. "She looks like she's going to cry." Maya wasn't going to cry. She was stronger than they realized, but she was trembling inside, trembling not because she feared them, but because she knew what she could do if she ever lost control. And that was something she never wanted to show. "I said, please let go," she repeated softly, trying not to sound upset. She didn't want a scene. She didn't want trouble. She just wanted to finish her assignment, but her calmness only encouraged them. "Why?" One boy mocked. "What are you going to do?" The room felt smaller, brighter, too loud and too quiet at the same time. She looked around, hoping a teacher would come back from the supply closet, but no one did. No classmates stepped in. Some looked away. Others watched in silence, unsure whether to intervene. Amaya felt the familiar tightness. In her chest, the feeling she'd worked so hard to control for years, the feeling that came right before she defended herself in the past, the feeling she didn't want to use here. Not again. Not in this school. Not in this place where she wanted a peaceful, fresh start. The boys noticed her discomfort. The smallest one nudged the one holding her jacket. "Dude, chill. She's scared." Instead of backing off, the boy smirked. "If she's scared, why doesn't she do something about it?" He tugged her jacket again, a little harder. Amaya's hand instinctively rose to stop him, gripping his wrist, gentle, controlled, but firm enough to make him pause. Their eyes met. Something changed. A flicker of shock crossed his face, as if he suddenly sensed something different about her, something he couldn't name. She released his wrist immediately. "Please. I don't want any trouble." Her voice cracked not from fear, but from frustration. From exhaustion. From holding in a part of herself that she didn't want anyone to see. One of the boys laughed again, trying to lighten the moment. "Relax. No one's hurting anybody. We're just messing around." But Amaya shook her head slightly, sadness in her eyes. Messing around? To him, maybe. To her, it was another reminder that people saw her as weak before they saw her as human. At that moment, the teacher re-entered the room, completely unaware of what had happened. The boys quickly stepped away, pretending to work. Amaya lowered her eyes to her notebook, pretending to read. But inside, everything was different, because today, something had changed. Today a line had been crossed. And today, for the first time since she moved to this school, Amaya realized something important. She couldn't keep hiding who she really was. Not anymore. All weekend. Amaya tried to push the incident out of her mind, but her thoughts kept looping back to that moment in the science lab. The boys' laughter. Their careless hands on her jacket. The way the room felt like it was closing in. In the tiny second, just a tiny one, when she grabbed his wrist and saw surprise flash across his face. It was the first time anyone at this school had even a hint of who she really was. And she hated that it happened like that. Saturday morning. She sat at the kitchen table while her mother, Dr. Simone Johnson, prepared breakfast. The smell of warm pancakes filled their small apartment, but Amaya couldn't enjoy it the way she normally did. She kept stirring syrup in circles, lost in her thoughts. Her mother noticed immediately. "You are quiet today," she said gently, sliding into the seat across from her. "More quiet than usual." Amaya smiled softly, trying to brush it off. "It's nothing." Her mother raised an eyebrow, the kind only mothers could raise. "Nothing is never nothing," Amaya sighed, and looked down at her hands. "Some boys were bothering me at school." Simone's face softened with concern but not fear. She had seen her daughter overcome far worse. "Are you hurt?" "No," Amaya said quickly. "Not at all. They were just being mean." Simone nodded slowly. "Kids can be cruel when they do not understand someone." Amaya hesitated. "I didn't want to react, Mom. I didn't want to use anything you taught me. I don't want to scare people." Her mother reached out and gently held her hand. "You are not dangerous, Amaya. You are disciplined. There is a difference." The words settled in her heart like warm tea soothing a sore throat. Simone continued, "I did not put you in karate to fight. I put you there so you could learn control, confidence, and courage. And you have all three." Amaya nodded, but her chest felt heavy. "It just felt awful. They looked at me like I was weak. You are not weak." Her mother squeezed her hand. "And one day the world will see that." But Amaya wasn't sure she wanted the world to see anything. She was tired of starting over, tired of being judged, tired of staying quiet because she did not want people to misunderstand her strength. After breakfast, she went to her room and opened her old metal box. Inside were years of karate competition, ribbons, medals, certificates, even the black belt she earned at 14. People always imagined black belts as loud, confident, explosive, but Amaya was the opposite. She moved silently. She fought gracefully. She never bragged, never raised her voice, never acted like she was better than anyone. That was partly why the bullying bothered her so much. It made her question whether her quietness was strength or weakness. She picked up her first medal, a small bronze circle with a faded ribbon. It reminded her of the moment she learned her most important lesson. Real strength was never about hurting someone. It was about controlling yourself, even when someone else tried to push you past your limits. That memory brought her a bit of peace, but school returned quickly, and Monday morning caught her off guard. As she walked through the hallways, she could feel eyes on her. Some students whispered, others stared. The boys from the lab pretended not to notice her, but their glances followed her wherever she went. She wished they would just ignore her completely. Attention, any attention, felt heavy. During lunch, she sat at her usual table in the corner, picking at her food while reading homework notes. That was when Maya Reyes, a cheerful girl from her math class, walked over holding her tray. "Can I sit here?" Maya asked with a warm smile. Amaya blinked, surprised. Yeah, sure." Maya sat down. "I saw what happened in the lab on Friday." A jolt of embarrassment shot through Amaya. "Oh, it wasn't a big deal." "It kinda was," Maya said gently. "But not in a dramatic way. Just, you didn't deserve that." Maya looked down, unsure what to say. "Compliments were harder to accept than insults," Maya continued. "You handled it really calmly. I don't think I could have kept my cool like that." Amaya shrugged. "I'm used to staying calm." There was a pause before Maya leaned in a little. "A lot of people think you're shy, but I think you're something else. You're, I don't know, centered." It was a word her karate instructor used often. It felt strange hearing it from a classmate. Amaya whispered, "Maybe." Maya lowered her voice. "I also think those boys are nervous around you now." Amaya almost laughed. "Nervous? Why?" "Because you didn't act the way they expected. You didn't cry, you didn't run, you didn't yell, you just looked at them like you were holding back something powerful." Maya's heart skipped. Holding back, yes. She was always holding back, Maya added. People sense stuff like that.
Oh.
For the first time since she transferred, Amaya felt a tiny spark of warmth, a small feeling of being understood. Even if it was just one person, it mattered. The rest of the day continued normally until the final bell rang. As she walked to her locker, Amaya heard footsteps behind her. She turned slightly and saw one of the boys from Friday, Tyler, the one who had grabbed her jacket. He looked uncertain, not arrogant, not mocking, just unsure. "Hey," he said quietly. Amaya tightened her grip on her backpack strap. "Hi," he swallowed. "About Friday." "I shouldn't have done that." Maya blinked, startled. She had expected irritation, maybe teasing, but not this. Tyler continued. "We were messing around. I didn't think you'd take it seriously." Maya chose her words carefully. "Even if it was a joke to you, it didn't feel like one to me." He nodded slowly. "Yeah, I get that, I guess." For a moment, they stood there in awkward silence. Then Tyler said something she never expected. "You're stronger than you look. Not physically stronger. Not about fighting. Just stronger." Amaya didn't respond, but inside, something shifted again, less fear, more clarity. She finally realized something. Strength wasn't just something she had. Strength was something people could feel from her, even if she never said a word, and the world was beginning to notice. The rest of the week passed quietly, almost too quietly. Amaya kept her usual routine, arriving early, sitting in the front row, leaving school the moment the final bell rang. She liked order, calmness, predictability. But ever since the lab incident, her insides felt like unsettled water, always shifting. People watched her more now, not with fear, but with curiosity. Whispers followed her down the hallway. "That's the girl from the lab." She didn't even yell. She just stared at them. "She's different." Amaya pretended not to hear, but she felt every word. She didn't want attention. She didn't want rumors. She didn't want to be a story. She wanted peace, but peace rarely lasts in high school. On Thursday afternoon, her science teacher assigned the class to redo the experiment from last week. Amaya's stomach tightened when she realized they'd be in the same room, doing the same activity with the same boys somewhere behind her. When she walked into the lab, the smell of chemicals, the shiny tables, and the bright overhead lights brought back the memory so sharply that she paused at the doorway. "Breathe," she told herself. "Just breathe." She found a seat at a table near the windows. The sunlight helped her feel grounded. She started setting up her materials: beakers, notes, pipettes. The classroom slowly filled with chatter and footsteps. She kept her eyes down, trying to stay invisible. But the universe had other plans. The door opened, and the boys walked in. Their laughter was softer this time, more controlled, as if they were aware of something they weren't ready to admit. Tyler's gaze drifted toward her for a moment, then away. The others didn't say a word to her, which was new. And honestly, a little strange. No jokes. No whispers. Just silence. Amaya didn't know if this was better or worse. Class began. Students worked in pairs and groups. Amaya worked quietly alone. As she adjusted the flame under her beaker, she felt someone step closer behind her. Her shoulders tensed. It was Tyler. "Your flame's a little high," he said softly, pointing at her equipment. Amaya blinked. "Oh, thanks." She lowered the flame gently. Tyler nodded and walked back to his group. It wasn't an apology, and it wasn't a conversation, but it was respectful. Unexpectedly respectful. She tried to shake off the strange feeling it left behind and focused on her experiment. For the next 20 minutes, things were peaceful, until they weren't. One of Tyler's friends even kept glancing at her table. He wasn't smirking or teasing. He looked annoyed. Annoyed that she was being ignored by his group. Annoyed that Tyler seemed different around her, and annoyed people make impulsive decisions. When the teacher stepped out to get more supplies, Evan sauntered toward her table, pretending to check something on the counter. Tyler shot him a warning look, but Evan ignored it. He stopped beside Amaya and leaned his elbows on her desk. "So," he said quietly, "everyone's talking about you now. Must be nice." Maya paused, unsure how to respond. "I didn't ask for that. You didn't have to." He tilted his head. "Quiet girl suddenly becomes the star of the school." She shook her head. "I don't want to be any of that," Evan smirked. "Maybe you don't, but he does." He gestured toward Tyler. Amaya felt heat rise to her face. "Please, I don't want problems." "Relax," he said. "I'm just talking." But his tone wasn't friendly. It was the kind of voice that made people shrink. The kind of voice that pushed buttons just to see what happened. He picked up the beaker she had been working on. "What's this? Your little project?" "Please put it down," Amaya said softly, her heart quickening. He swirled the beaker casually, not dangerously, just enough to make her uneasy. "Hey, Evan," Tyler called sharply. "Stop." Evan ignored him. "You know, we were just joking last time," he continued. "It wasn't that serious. People are making it a big deal for no reason." Maya swallowed. "It felt serious to me." He laughed once, a short, cold sound. "Everything's serious to you." She tightened her grip on the table edge. She didn't want conflict. She didn't want a scene. But her patience was wearing thin. Just then, the beaker slipped slightly in Evan's hand, and he caught it with a jerk. Nothing spilled. The sudden movement startled her. Her instincts flared. Move now. Protect. Prevent. But she forced her body to stay still. "Put it down," she said calmly, evenly, the way her karate instructor had taught her to speak during tense moments. Evan paused. Something in her tone made him freeze for half a second. Her voice wasn't loud. It wasn't angry. It was controlled, firm, grounded. He put the beaker down slowly. Amaya let out a quiet breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. Before Evan could say another word, the teacher returned. Evan quickly stepped away, pretending to work on his table. Tyler threw him a sharp, disappointed look, but said nothing. Class ended 10 minutes later. Students packed their bags and rushed out. Amaya waited, letting the room empty so she wouldn't be caught in the crowd. As she picked up her notebook, she heard slow footsteps approaching. She knew who it was before she turned. Tyler, he looked serious, almost embarrassed. He was out of line, he said, nodding toward the door Evan had exited through. Amaya didn't respond. Tyler continued, he just doesn't like change. Or being wrong. He shifted awkwardly. I didn't mean for anything to happen again. I swear. Amaya glanced at him. I don't want trouble with anyone. I know, he said. But trouble kind of finds you when you're different. She frowned. Different how? Tyler exhaled slowly. You don't react like other people. You don't yell, you don't get scared, you don't push back, but you're not weak either. It's confusing. Amaya lowered her eyes. I just try to stay calm. He said quietly. But sometimes, being calm scares people more than being loud. His words hit deeper than he probably meant them to. For the first time, Maya realized something. People weren't just misunderstanding her silence. They were intimidated by it. Not because she wanted them to be, but because silence with strength felt different. It carried weight. Tyler stepped back. I'll talk to Evan. He shouldn't have bothered you. Amaya nodded, unsure what else to say, as she walked out of the room. One thought echoed in her mind. She wasn't hiding her strength anymore. Others were starting to sense it, and the next time someone tested her patience, they would see a glimpse of who she truly was. Friday morning arrived with a heavy gray sky hanging over Ridgewood High, as if the weather sensed the uneasy tension in the halls. Students walked in wearing hoodies, whispering about weekend plans, tests, and the upcoming football game. But Amaya felt like she was walking through a different world, one where every stare felt heavier than the last. After the science lab moment with Evan, the rumor mill had exploded again. Not bad rumors, not cruel ones, just curious ones. She didn't even flinch. Did you see how calm she stayed? Evan backed off. Evan never backs off. That last one seemed to surprise people the most. Amaya didn't want any of it. She wanted the normal quietness she had before. But once people decided you were interesting, there was no going back. Still, she held on to her peace. She walked to class with steady breaths. She kept her focus on her notes. She reminded herself she wasn't at school to impress or scare anyone. She was there to learn and to stay true to herself, but life had other plans. During third period, the teacher announced a school-wide lab safety inspection that would happen in the afternoon. Each class needed to prepare their workstations before the school staff arrived. Great, Amaya thought. Another day in the science lab. She walked there slowly, hoping the boys had forgotten she existed. But the moment she stepped inside, she could tell something was off. The energy in the room was strange quiet, tense, filled with eyes watching her and then quickly looking away. The boys stood at the back, whispering among themselves. Tyler glanced at her with an expression she couldn't read. Not angry. Not guilty. Something else. Evan, however, looked irritated. His jaw was tight, his arms crossed. He wasn't looking at her, but she could feel the frustration radiating off him. He didn't like being told to back off. He didn't like that Tyler spoke up for her yesterday. He didn't like losing control of the narrative. People like Evan fed off reactions. And the fact that Amaya never gave him any only made him more irritated. The teacher started giving instructions, and everyone moved to their stations. Amaya worked alone again, wiping the table carefully, organizing the glassware, adjusting everything to perfection. Her mother always said, a clear space keeps a clear mind. But Amaya's mind wasn't clear. Not today. 30 minutes in, while the teacher checked another group's work, Evan walked toward her table again. Tyler saw him and immediately stiffened. Evan, don't, he said under his breath. Evan ignored him. Amaya tried to stay focused, pretending she hadn't noticed Evan's approach. But he stopped right beside her, too close for comfort. You think you're special, don't you? He muttered quietly. Amaya didn't look up. No, and I don't want to be, Evan scoffed. Then stop acting like you're above everyone. Tyler keeps talking about how calm you are, how different you are seriously. You barely talk. Amaya's heart began beating faster, but she kept her voice steady. I'm not trying to be anything. I just want to be left alone. Well, you can't be left alone anymore, Evan snapped. His voice sharp but still quiet enough that others couldn't hear. Everyone's looking at you like you're, what? Some kind of mystery? Some kind of Evan. Stop. Tyler's voice cut across the tension like a blade, not aggressive, but firm. Evan turned toward him. Why are you defending her? We've known you forever. She's been here for weeks. Tyler stepped forward. Because you're bothering someone who didn't do anything to you. For a second, Amaya felt a strange gratitude, but also discomfort. She didn't want people fighting because of her. Evan shook his head. Unbelievable, he muttered. Then he turned back to Amaya. You know, your quiet act? It's annoying. Something inside. Amaya shifted not anger, but clarity. She finally looked up at him, her eyes steady, her voice soft but strong. I'm not acting. This is just who I am. Her calmness caught him off guard again. He opened his mouth to retort, but at that moment the teacher walked back toward them. Evan stepped away instantly, trying to look innocent. Tyler sighed and walked back to his table, rubbing the back of his neck like he was exhausted. The teacher continued the inspection. Unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface, Amaya returned to her work, but her hands trembled slightly. Not from fear. Fear had vanished a long time ago. This was something else. The feeling of holding in years of discipline, strength, and silence. The weight of never wanting to hurt anyone, but also never wanting to be hurt again. The inspection finished, and students began packing their things. Amaya stayed back, wanting space. She wiped the table slowly, breathing in and out, grounding herself. As the room emptied, Tyler approached her again, this time alone, quieter, almost hesitant. Are you okay? He asked softly. Amaya nodded. I'm fine. You don't seem fine, he said, his voice gentle. I'm sorry he keeps bothering you. He's just stubborn. He hates being wrong, and you make him feel wrong without even trying. I don't want to make anyone feel anything, she whispered. I just want peace. Tyler stared at her for a moment, studying her face like he was seeing something new. You know, he said finally, people sense when someone has strength, even if they never show it. It makes them unsure how to act. You're quiet, but you're not scared. That's rare. Amaya blinked, stunned by how accurately he saw her. Tyler continued. Most people get loud when they're nervous. You get calmer. That kind of calm makes people stop and think. Amaya didn't know how to respond. No one ever had put her truth into words like that. She packed her notebook slowly. I'm not trying to be intimidating. I know, he said. But sometimes the strongest person in the room is the one who doesn't need to prove anything. Her heart thumped softly, for the first time since she transferred. She felt understood by someone she least expected as Amaya walked out of the room. The weight inside her didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt like awakening. Sooner or later, she realized the truth about her strength would come out, and when it did, she hoped the world would understand it came not from anger, but from discipline, patience, and heart. Over the weekend, Ridgewood High buzzed with quiet rumors about the calm girl who never reacts. The story twisted in different mouths. Some said she stood up to bullies. Some said she scared Evan just by looking at him. Others claimed she had a mysterious kind of confidence no one could understand. Amaya ignored every rumor. She spent her Saturday cleaning her room, finishing homework early, and helping her mother fold laundry while watching old movies. Her mother always believed that peace was built in the small routines of life, and Amaya carried that belief with her everywhere she went. But on Sunday afternoon, while making tea, Simone asked gently, "How was your week?" Truly, Amaya paused. Her mother's voice had a way of reaching the truth even before she spoke. It was heavy, Amaya admitted. I didn't want attention. I didn't want people watching me. Does their attention come from fear? Her mother asked. Amaya shook her head. Not fear, confusion. Simone smiled softly. Because you see the world differently, and you act differently than they expect. That is not a weakness. Amaya nodded, but she wasn't entirely convinced. She felt a mix of pride and discomfort. She didn't want people to think she was dangerous or strange. She simply wanted to be understood. On Monday morning, she walked into school with her backpack held close, her breath steady. She didn't expect anything unusual, just another day of quietness and keeping to herself. But fate rarely followed her expectations. The moment she entered the hallway, she noticed a circle of students gathered near the main office. Their faces were tense, whispering loudly. Some even pointed toward her before looking away quickly. Her stomach tightened. She didn't like attention, especially this kind of attention. Maya from math class rushed toward her. Amaya, something happened. What do you mean? Amaya asked. A teacher reviewed the lab camera footage, Maya whispered, leaning in. They saw everything what happened last week, what happened on Thursday. The school called a meeting. Maya's heart dropped. A meeting? Why? Maya held her notebook to her chest. They just want to talk to everyone involved. They want to address bullying. Maya closed her eyes for a brief second. She was relieved the truth came out, but also nervous about being in the center of it. Within minutes, she was called to the main office. When she entered, the room held faces she knew too well. Tyler, Evan, the other boys. The science teacher and the vice principal. Evan sat stiffly, arms locked across his chest, avoiding her gaze. Tyler gave her a small nod, one that said, "You're not alone in this." Amaya appreciated that more than she could say. The vice principal, Ms. Green, looked at the group seriously. We reviewed the footage from the science lab, she said. There are concerns about repeated behavior toward one student. Evan's jaw tightened. Ms. Green continued, I want to be clear, no one is in major trouble today. But we must address behavior that makes someone uncomfortable, even if no one meant harm. Evan lifted his head finally. We weren't hurting her, he muttered. No, Ms. Green agreed gently. But you were creating an environment that made her feel unsafe. The room fell silent. Tyler looked down at his hands. The smallest boy in their group shifted uncomfortably. Evan stared at the wall. Ms. Green turned toward Amaya, her voice soft but firm. And Amaya, I want to acknowledge your calmness. You handled each situation with maturity and patience. You did not escalate anything, and you remained respectful. Amaya didn't know what to say. Her hands trembled slightly in her lap. The science teacher added, You showed remarkable restraint. You didn't raise your voice. You didn't react out of anger. You stayed grounded. Amaya felt her cheeks warm. Ms. Green continued, Your calm response shows emotional strength. Not everyone your age has that. Those words touched something deep inside her, a place she had kept locked for years. A place that wasn't filled with karate moves or trophies, but with years of discipline, long nights of training, and the promise she made to herself never to hurt anyone unnecessarily. Then Ms. Green gently shifted her focus to the boys. You must understand that respect is not optional, and someone's silence is not an invitation to test them.
Ow.
The boys nodded. Even Evan, though his nod was small and stubborn. Then came the part Amaya least expected. Ms. Green smiled softly at her. Your mother mentioned you practice martial arts? Quiet hush fell over the room. Tyler's eyes widened a little. One of the other boys straightened. Even Evan blinked. Amaya nodded, unsure where this was going. Yes, I do. What level? The science teacher asked, genuinely curious. I'm a junior black belt, she said simply, as if it were an ordinary thing. The boys froze. Ms. Green continued proudly. Your mother told us you've trained for years not to fight, but to build discipline, confidence, and control. And it shows. Tyler looked at her with a respect he'd never shown before. Evan, who had mocked her quietness just days ago, looked down, ashamed. He finally understood the weight of what he'd been messing with. Not her skills, but her restraint. The meeting ended with a plan. The boys were asked to attend a peer responsibility program. Maya was given the choice to join a leadership group at school to help teach confidence building to younger students. She didn't answer right away. She needed time to think. She had always avoided the spotlight, but maybe this time the spotlight wasn't punishment. Maybe it was purpose. When the boys stood up to leave, Tyler lingered behind. Amaya, he said softly, I'm really sorry about everything. You didn't deserve any of it. Amaya nodded. Thank you. Evan paused near the door. He opened his mouth, then closed it. He didn't know how to apologize, and she didn't need him to. His silence said enough. As Amaya walked out of the office, sunlight streamed through the windows, warm and bright. For the first time since she arrived at Ridgewood High, she didn't feel invisible. She felt strong, seen, understood, and she sensed something even bigger. This wasn't the end of her story. It was the beginning of her impact. The next week arrived, quietly carrying a new kind of energy through Ridgewood High. Not loud, not dramatic, but different, gentler, more aware, almost respectful. Students who once glanced at Amaya with confusion now looked at her with warmth or curiosity. Some even smiled at her in the hallways, small nods as if they understood something deeper about her. But the biggest change was inside her. For the first time since she transferred, she didn't walk through the halls wishing she were invisible. She still kept to herself, still liked calmness, still preferred silence, but now her silence wasn't mistaken for weakness. People saw her now, not because of rumors, but because of the strength she showed by staying calm, patient, and brave in the face of unfairness. On Tuesday morning, Ms. Green found her at her locker with a gentle smile. "Good morning, Amaya. I wanted to talk to you about something," she said. Double quotes, yes, Maya asked softly. "We're starting a new program," Ms. Green explained, "for students who feel anxious, insecure, or bullied. We want to help them build confidence and learn self-respect. I think you would be the perfect student leader." Amaya froze. "Me, yes you," Ms. Green said warmly. "Calmness is a strength, control is a strength, and you have both. You can help others feel safe." Amaya didn't know what to say. She'd never imagined leading anything. She wasn't loud or outgoing or popular. She simply lived quietly in her own world. But maybe she thought, maybe quiet people had something important to teach too. I can try," she said finally. "That's all we ask," Ms. Green replied. That afternoon, after classes ended, Maya walked into the school's small multi-purpose room where the new confidence-building group was meeting for the first time. There were about 10 students, some shy, some nervous, some alone, just like she had once been. They looked up when she walked in. Some recognized her, some whispered to each other, but no one looked threatened. They looked hopeful. Maya waved her over. "I'm helping too," she said happily. Amaya smiled, grateful to see a friendly face in the room. Ms. Green introduced her gently. "Everyone, this is Amaya. She's here to help guide us today." A few eyebrows raised. A quiet new girl was going to guide them, but when Amaya stepped forward, something inside her settled. She knew exactly how she felt in their position. She knew the fear of being misunderstood. She knew the weight of silence. She knew what it was like to keep strength tucked away because the world wasn't ready for it yet. She took a slow breath and began speaking in her soft, steady voice. "When I came to this school," she said, "I didn't know anyone. I didn't talk much. I kept my head down because it felt safer. But the more I tried to be invisible, the more attention I got from the wrong people." The group listened closely. "I'm not strong because I know martial arts," she continued. "I'm strong because I learned how to breathe through fear. I learned how to stay calm even when things felt unfair. Anyone can learn that Tevin without karate." A girl at the front wiped her eyes quietly. Amaya continued, "Strength isn't loud. It doesn't need to shout. Sometimes the strongest people are the quiet ones, the steady ones, the ones who don't give up." The room softened with shared emotion. Over the next hour, Amaya taught them simple grounding techniques, not punches or kicks or anything physical, but ways to calm their heartbeat, ways to walk with confidence, ways to look people in the eye without fear. She wasn't teaching them to fight. She was teaching them to believe, to be themselves. Students who had entered the room with their heads down left with their shoulders a little higher. Maya whispered, "You're amazing, Amaya. You don't even realize the effect you have." Amaya didn't feel amazing. She felt useful, helpful, connected, and that was worth so much more that evening. As she walked out of the school building, she saw someone waiting near the bike racks. Tyler, he looked nervous, but sincere. "Hey," he said softly. "Can I talk to you?" Amaya nodded. He shifted his hands awkwardly. "I heard you're leading that new group," she shrugged modestly. "Just helping a little." Tyler looked down, then back up. "What does she know?" "You've handled everything better than anyone I know." "I'm sorry again for everything. I'm really trying to change. Maya believed him. Not because he said the words, but because his actions matched them. Everyone can change, she said gently. If they want to? Tyler nodded. Do you think I could join? Not because I need help. I just want to learn how to be better. Amaya smiled, a real smile this time. Yes, you can join. The next day he did. So did two more boys who had once stood behind Evan. They weren't joining out of guilt. They were joining because seeing Amaya's calm strength made them want to grow. Even Evan, 1 week later, appeared at the doorway of the confidence group. He didn't come in, he didn't speak. But he lingered quietly for several minutes, watching. That alone showed progress. In the weeks that followed, Amaya's life transformed not dramatically, not suddenly, but slowly and beautifully. People who once overlooked her now respected her. Students who felt invisible now looked to her for guidance. Teachers praised her leadership. Struggling kids found hope through her words. And the confidence-building group became one of the school's most supportive communities. But the most important change was inside Amaya herself. For the first time, she wasn't hiding her strength. She wasn't afraid of being misunderstood. She wasn't holding her breath around people who didn't know her. She was simply being herself, quiet. Calm, centered, strong. She had learned that true power wasn't in fighting. It was in the discipline to walk away, the courage to speak softly, and the heart to lift others up. And Ridgewood High would never forget the quiet girl who changed everything, not with fists or fear, but with calm confidence, compassion, and unshakable strength.